then actually just go over, if you, when you're done, just go over and see if it's off of mine.
Okay.
And then it will shut off the recording once I just close the meeting, you know.
Okay. Okay, thanks, John. Ugh. Okay, we're just recording from the other room. We're good.
So you didn't have authority on your account?
Well, and I've done a ZBA before, so I don't know if how I'm
You
not
made
sure.
then whether the meeting was structured, like you said. Yeah, when
Yeah.
Barbara said, who had us authority and you weren't included. Yep.
Exactly.
Let's learn.
Right.
Let's learn.
All right. So
All
it's
right.
recording.
Do I get time and a half for this?
I'm gonna start the meeting, everybody. Cut the chatter, okay? Agenda for
All right.
the Zoning Board of Adjustment. As Chair of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis and in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to the meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the Governor's Emergency Order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are utilizing the Microsoft Team for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through the Microsoft Team. And the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through the dialing the following phone number, 1-603-664-0240 and conference ID 381-309-159 number sign. Please note that all votes taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. I'm going to call the roll now. Ray Damaris.
Here.
George Bailey.
Here.
Dave Whitten. Dave.
He's muted.
Here.
Cheryl Huckins. She's absent. Okay, and Chair Karen Forbes. I'm just going to announce to everybody that we have a 4-person board, which means that in order to receive any relief that you're asking for, you still have to get 3 out of 4 of the votes. We afford people the opportunity to continue this to the next meeting in the hopes that we'll have 5. We can't ever guarantee that we'll have 5 at the next meeting. We have been having 5 for the past 6 to 9 months, I think, but it's your decision. Again, it requires 3 affirmative votes, no matter what the number of sitting board members are. If anybody wants to continue to the next meeting, let me know now or at any time. Hearing none, we will move on to the first matter, which is a continuation from January 20th, 2021. And it's number 239-1.1-TC-21-ZBA variance, owners Dave and Glenn Henderson. I think Dave Garvey's here on behalf of the applicant.
I am.
Okay, do you want to address anything, Dave? We had a site walk a couple of weeks ago because we had questions about the location. The applicant is seeking variances. So let me just remind the board, because this was in January, to what are the actual variance requests, Dave? Where's the section?
We're section following articles 2.25 town center, article 16 plan unit development, article 19 table of uses, footnote 13 where the PUD is required, and article 4.1.3 backlot regulations of the town center located off Franklin Pierce Highway, map 239 lot 1.
Oh yeah, here it is. Yep. Right, and the idea is you're going to have 3 lots instead of 2 at the back lots, and it's to allow for residential in the town center district, correct?
Correct.
Are there any questions from the board of the applicant? No? Nobody has any questions?
No. I may have a comment, just that if this is approved, that we're not changing the zoning here, we're just allowing residential use within the town area, town common area.
So
Right?
that's, here's Cheryl.
Oh,
So is that Is that within our power to be able to do that?
Yes.
We're not changing the zoning, Dave. We're just allowing a use within a certain zoning. So we're not actually changing the zoning. We're allowing residential use in the town center.
No, we're allowing residential.
So that could change down the road, right? It still continues as town center zoning. We're just allowing residential use within that currently
For this property. Cheryl.
for this property, correct?
Cheryl.
But that could change down the road. That could change down the road.
Cheryl, you in there? You all set?
Hi.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi,
can't
Cheryl.
see
We
your
see the
face.
top of your head.
All right.
Can you see me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
all set. Okay, so we now have 5
Now
members.
at 5?
I'm sorry, I had a hard time getting in.
Cheryl, we just started back on the one that we did the sidewalk for. We just called it.
I saw that.
So it's the first matter, and we just opened up for discussions. I asked the board if they had any questions. We reviewed what Dave's looking for, which is to be able to use this property, for residential use, and then to allow 3 instead of 2 back lots. Those are
Okay.
2 variances. It's 4.13 and the table of use.
2.25.
Yep.
George has his hand up.
George, do you have a question?
I do. I have a different thought than what Mr. Damaris has put forward, that we're not changing the zoning. I've read this several times, and I feel that we are changing the zoning, and it was something that was put forward to the voters. And I was, as we know, I was supplied with that piece. And so I just disagree with Mr. Damaris that we are changing. I believe we are changing zoning, and we're overstepping. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll get to the commentary. So let's just get back on the thing. We'll discuss this,
Okay.
after, George.
Certainly, Madam- certainly. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the applicant? I don't believe there's any questions for the applicant, right? Is there anybody else here to speak in favor? Anybody here to speak in opposition? Hearing none, we'll close the public testimony portion of the meeting, and the board can discuss. And George, go ahead.
Thank you very much. I really have a lot of respect for Ray and what have you with his comments, but I just feel differently this time here, that after reading it. Of course, everybody knows I couldn't quite make the second and third lot, but I just feel that we're being asked to change zoning, and I just can't go along with it. So I make that ahead of time, and I'm sorry for that. Thank you.
Okay.
So thank you, George.
I agree.
I don't think we are, though. I don't think we are changing the zoning. We're allowing a residential use in the town center. Down the road, it could change, right? I mean, think about how things progress over time, right? Typically, somebody would build a house, and then down the road, it becomes a business. I mean, look at all the businesses on Route 9 and Route 4. They develop over time. So we're not changing the zoning. We're allowing a residential use within the town center. And those could turn into businesses. I mean, Dave's property, if he's going to build a house out there, could turn into a business down the road. That's not going to change, I don't think, based on our decision. We're just allowing a house to be used in that area. And I think
But-
that helps the town.
But also, the original was to have one house there. Now we're gonna go from 1, we're skipping over 2 and we're going to 3. So we're still changing the zoning, right? And I'm not gonna get in a contest with you. I'm just gonna let it go at that. I'm sorry.
Let's just, yeah.
You
So
can
let me-
agree to disagree, George.
Let me just,
Don't often.
and this is a request, there's 2 requests, okay? One of which is a use variance. Anytime there's a use variance, there's a change to the zoning ordinance in that you're allowing something that's not permitted by right in that zoning ordinance, okay? They are allowed to put residential right now in that zoning district, zoning area, except it has to be mixed use. That's what the planned unit development or the town center development requirements are. What they're proposing is at this time, the commercial aspect of it, and just do residential on 3 separate lots instead of 2. And what George is referring to is the fact that a couple years ago, there was a movement to amend that district and to allow exactly what the Hendersons are seeking to do now, and the town voted it down. Am I summarizing what we've talked about?
Absolutely.
Cheryl, your hand up?
Close, yes.
I wanted to say that I agree with George. I think that if we do this, it sets a precedent. If we allow this lot to become a residential development without any commercial, how do we deny the next person and the next person and the next person that comes before us? We are essentially changing zoning. We are basically destroying the concept of the town center. And where the voters voted against changing that, I'm not comfortable changing it on the board if that's not what the voters want. If they want to abandon the town center project, fine, but that's not the case.
So why don't we go over the standard for a variance? Okay, and we can discuss it in terms of whether or not a variance should be granted. Number one, special conditions exist such that the literal enforcement of the ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship to the applicant as defined under applicable law. And what the Hendersons write is this is a large parcel located close to the center of Barrington. This parcel of land is 28.99 acres outback with frontage located on Route 9. It is outback, it was a ways up, the topography was rough.
And how?
Okay, frontage consists of 158 feet. The property was the subject of a subdivision in 2005 and 2006. I'm not sure I see anything else on hardship.
Karen, can I just mention there is somebody trying to get in?
Pardon?
There is somebody who just phoned that's trying to get in for this particular, to be able to comment on this particular one.
Okay, so we're just going to
Getting
let them in because we're in the discussion aspect.
Okay.
Okay, there are a number of conditions existing that are inherent in the land that create the hardship. First, is
one that's closest.
the topo is such that with the contours of the land, just about any kind of commercial enterprise will have a very difficult time creating enough level land to actually create a usable area. There's a plateau at the top of the hill, but all of the rest of the parcel is undulating and sloping to the extent that in most of the site there are slopes such that siting a single family home is doable, but beyond that, likely not physically possible. That is, and then they have additionally, the site is located literally way off the beaten path with an access drive in excess of 1,200 feet. That's their special conditions. Any comments from the board?
Yeah, can I comment?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so my question is that we put the zoning, this town center zoning in what year? Was it after we gave the permission to put that one particular lot in that property? Because that was 2005, correct? That we allowed that one house to be built?
Yeah, I don't remember it was in here.
Yeah, it was 2005. I think 2000. The original development was 2005 to allow that property to be developed. So I guess I question if there's a precedent as to whether or not this was already allowed to be residential, even though it's in the town center.
So I think it was,
beside the fact that it's now 3 versus 1, did we already set a precedent by allowing this to be a residential piece of property?
I'm not sure when did the town center zoning go in, Marcia?
Wasn't that access not from the frontage, that particular lot? Like, there was something about that.
No, that
The
was there.
state
Yeah,
gave one lot, and they put
Right.
specifically not to exceed. When we went to 2, not to exceed, it was never used, and I know that we didn't have it there, but now
Right.
we're going from there to 3.
right. But
Okay, so there's 2 requests. We're going to deal with each variance separately.
Right.
So we're dealing with the use right now.
And my question is in regard to that. If we set a precedent already to allow a residential property on that, allow residential development on that property, does that set a precedent over the town center?
Can I say something? The way I remember that, is there a house built out there now, a residential house?
No.
That was,
It was approved for.
wasn't there a request for access to a back area that's not included, that didn't use the frontage or something. There was something about that. It was not approved for a specific residential use.
Yeah, it was for one lot.
For
George
one lot,
keeps-
it was approved, but it was only for one driveway, not three. But at one section on the frontage.
Yeah, it was for the deeded driveway access to
Okay,
allow access to one lot, which is the one that we walked up in the
Yep.
site visit.
okay, but that's not resident out there. There's nothing out there.
But there was approval for one residence on that property, and Dave's trying to divide it into three. So
I don't think they approved a house. I think that was just approved for a back lot, not including the frontage.
No, I think we did approve one residential house back there.
yeah, and there's a DES has a wetlands permit for one. It's expired now. It expired in 2011, but there was a DES approval for the wetlands crossing for that same access that
Mhm.
Dave's trying to get now.
You should, it's to apply the current zoning to the lot, and they're asking relief from applying what was voted on by the voters. And I think that's your big concern, is you're trying to go around and around, but it's really about what the
Yeah.
current zoning is in town center and what the intent.
The state letter came back August of '06, Madam Chair.
So Marcia, too, the 2011 was when the planning board put forth the amendment to the zoning ordinance, right?
Actually, it was more recently than that. That was, I want to say it was 3 years ago. It was quite recently, because it was when we were going all through the whole Killiff gas station debacle. And and I think there's a copy of part of the presentations for it, which went to the voters about requesting to change some of town center to village district, which would have allowed both single family homes, but also multi-family homes, and that failed in the vote. So it was not passed by the voters.
So it's 2018 then?
I want to say 18. Yeah, it was quite recently. Yeah.
Okay.
It was right around the time I retired, or right before I retired, and that was about 3 years ago.
Yeah, that's right after we shifted to paper from parchment.
Yeah, let me see if because I had the handout is in from the presentation to, there's a lot of things in here.
So I just want to remind the board that anytime there's a request for a use variance, we're going to face this issue. And the issue is not when the town voted on it, but the issue is whether or not the applicant meets the standards for the variance.
Okay.
Okay,
We're being asked, Madam Chair, we're being asked to change it. When we gave the property by Christmas Dove, we turned around and we made the change. We said it had to have the mixed there. And
by its very nature, a variance request is a request for relief from the zoning ordinance, be it a use variance or be it a footage one. It doesn't matter. It's always going to be the same thing. I understand that the issue here is that it was in 2018, it was put before the board, before the town, and the town did not approve it. But that's not the question. The question is whether or not the applicant meets the standards for a variance request. Because it's always going to be, always, every time somebody comes before us, it's a question of, are we going to give them relief from the zoning ordinance?
Okay. So
I think, let me tell you what I think. I think it's way out there. The topography was tough to build. It's going to be tough for a commercial property to be there. Residential is the only use that probably can be there now. Other than that, the property probably realistically cannot be developed for years to come. So I think the topography does, whether you, I'm telling you what I think. There's other standards too. That's the hardship standard. Then is it consistent with the ordinance printing? It's not with that's the wrong language he's got. It's, Is it in the public interest? Is it consistent with the spirit of the ordinance? Will there not result in diminution of surrounding property values? And is it contrary to the public interest? And contrary to the public interest and spirit of the ordinance have to do with, is it consistent with the properties that are surrounding it? Okay, and there's no development whatsoever there right now, so it's consistent.
That's not me. Madam Chair,
Yep.
what I'd like to bring up, it says here, the village zoning 2.23, it brings up to the village zoning district is intended to promote mixed-use development at higher density in order to provide a centralized location for regular community interaction as well as convenient opportunities for the purchase of goods and services to town residents. And right off the bat, when you read that, it doesn't fall under that. It's you're asking us to make a whole, you're not, but it just asks to make a whole different change.
I understand.
You know,
I understand. We can disagree. I understand.
oh, I know we can. You and I,
A lot of things.
we've done this a lot over the years. And I'm not trying to be political about it, but I'm just saying, and when you read it, it says the regulations are intended to allow opportunities for creating apartments above commercial establishments and multifamily senior housing development that would be in close proximity to the municipality and school facilities. You know, it's, thank you. I just can't stress enough how adamantly I feel about this when you read these, that we are being the one to do it.
Okay.
In my opinion, this property is not going to get developed as a commercial property. It's going to get developed as a residential property first, and then down the road in the future, it will be developed as a town center. That's why I think this is a good idea, and I will be approving this, in my opinion.
I think
Ray, do you really think that if you spent all that money to buy one of the, now, when I caught up with everybody on the walkthrough,
down the
I
road.
looked at this, and it was a beautiful, beautiful piece of property, whether you had lot 1, 2, or 3, as indicated on the TFM conceptual design. It's beautiful. Do you think that you're going to turn around and take your basement of your house and change it into a commercial? I don't. You know,
George, it all depends on who owns the property at the time. Dave needs to know that if he builds a house on that lot, he could have a neighbor that has a business next door. That's what I'm saying is you allow this residential and it allows the development of that whole area. It can turn into the town center that you're looking for. That's what's going to happen the way it is right now.
Listen, you're both debating planning issues. This is not planning, this is variance.
Thank you, Matt. That's exactly what I'm going to say, because I've done this before, and I was told the same thing. We can't set precedents. We have to go by what's here.
Well, there's a question as to how much precedent you can set anyways, but all right. Are we ready to vote? Or this is just on the question of whether they can put in residential use, the 3 houses, residential use versus, it's not the 2 versus the 3 lots, it's the residential use, which is the table.
I make a motion to grant the use of residential residential use of this property in the town center.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, I'm going to call a roll call vote on it. Cheryl?
Nay.
George?
Nay.
Dave?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
And Chair Karen Forbes, aye. Now let's move on to the 3 versus 2 lots. Does anybody want to discuss that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The subdivision, somebody's got theirs. Can somebody mute their mic, please, because I can hear myself. So my concern is with the 3 versus 1, which is what it originally was, is that the access, the deeded access to the frontage on Route 9, which is used to get access to those 3 lots, is not in the interest of what the deeded access is supposed to allow. And my concern is that you have one driveway going in to service 3 properties. And I've had experience with, just put an example out there, one resident not paying for their third or their share of maintenance and care of that property. Now that, I don't necessarily think that'll fall upon the town, but I'm concerned about it. That's all. And that's my voice on that. I mentioned it in the last meeting as well. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
So that would be a warning to the developer to make sure that that's taken care of. Dave, do you have your hand up?
I think that's written into our zone, our planning board rules now. If they're developing some back lot property or something where there's a private road of this such, that there has to be some kind of a organization or association to maintain the road.
Dave, do you have something you want to say?
I do. So 2 things. One, met with Rick at the fire department, and he gave me the specifications for the driveway, which is basically the same as what I've done on a number of previous projects. 2, the deeded, basically there's a shared driveway agreement, which is associated with the deed and is recorded along with the deed, which specifies that all do contribute. And I've had history with at least 3 other projects that it's worked out phenomenally. Actually, one with 2 people on one driveway, and the others with 3 people on one driveway.
Okay, so I had forgotten that we'd closed the public portion of the meeting. And that's okay, but if anybody wants to make, not that we're ready, but just if there's somebody who's going to make a motion to grant the request for variance, perhaps it should also include the requirement that there be a homeowners association or something formally adopted and recorded in the registry of deeds, ensuring that all parties using that access have an obligation to maintain and repair it. Okay?
Karen, I think that's required by the planning board rules.
I understand, but within our scope. So George has something he wants to say and Cheryl wants to talk.
Yeah, I'm just, I have to tell you that, we're setting precedents by trying to stipulate that, as like Ray says, that's for the planning board. That's not for us to do in our amendment. But the state has already, I haven't seen the new state approval yet that grants them that right to use it. They gave them at the time, the state was allowed to say you have such a long period of time to use it, and that time has expired. So I haven't been able to find that other letter in the document stating that they have an extension from the state to allow them to go to an additional house on that piece of property when the state only gave it to them for they gave it to them for one. But they gave an additional one for a second piece of property then they put a certain length of time on it at such times it would expire. And it has expired since 2006, but for the record, I can't find that that document that came from the state. And so I think that we're overstepping. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Cheryl.
Yeah, we currently allow 2 back lots on a lot, and we're putting residential in where residential is not allowed by zoning, lone residential, and now we're amending the residential zoning to allow more back lots than we typically would, and I don't understand why.
So we haven't granted it yet. Okay, it's not granted, just for clarity. Okay, so what it is, he still has to meet the standard for a variance for this variance too, which is he has to show us that.
Karen, I think based on our last vote allowing residential, he's allowed 2 lots now.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but the question is 2 to 3. Okay.
2 to 3, right, yeah.
So the question becomes, are there special conditions exist that literal enforcement of the ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship to the applicant as defined under applicable law? And what he's saying is it's the cost with an access drive in excess of $1,200. Any kind of commercial requires traffic. I guess what he's basing it on is he wants to be able to cost between, I think that's the hardship that he's got.
What hardship was that again? Was that a monetary hardship? Because if it is, the state says we're not supposed to use a monetary.
No, you can under the new ordinance. It's just not, you still have to show special conditions of the land. The question is, are there special conditions of the land that are unusual surrounding properties?
Madam Chair, what's happening is he's asking for condition upon a condition that was approved.
Yeah. Yeah, it's,
He's
Hey, do you wanna-
piggybacking. So, but if he didn't get the first one, that the board approved, then there wouldn't be any need for the second one or anything else because he couldn't do it. But because it was approved, now he's piggybacking another change to go on the change we just gave him tonight.
I'm just gonna reopen because Dave looked like he wants to respond to something that's been said.
Should that be a consensus of the board, Madam Chair?
No,
I'm being difficult because I really don't approve of this, and
I know you don't, but I'm gonna reopen and let him answer so that the record is clear. Okay, Dave, go ahead.
So the hardship is not just in the cost. The hardship is also in the fact that the land is physically located so far off the beaten path, so to speak, that the need to, there's two things. One, when you take 30 acres and you do 2 lots, you've got basically 15 acres per lot. It seems to be an overt waste of resources. And secondly, again, it's the cost, but it's also the fact that it's the cost going forward. The cost going forward for those who are living out there is also a factor. And to split it 3 ways between 3 people versus 2 people is definitely far in excess of, it's far better than just the 2 people. So, and that's not even going to the cost of building the driveway itself. Hold on a sec. I want to go back to, I had a thought and I completely lost it after George talked. Yeah, it's basically the natural obstacles. When you think about the fact that there's just the topography, et cetera, in order to get out there, it is a long way.
Okay.
It's a physical constraint.
Okay, do you want to take your thing off now?
Sure.
Okay, you have your hand up still.
Oh, how do you? Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay.
I didn't know it was up.
Yeah, I'm going to close that portion of the meeting and the board's going to go back to discussing. Basically, he's saying that it's the monetary cost going forward and building it and then going forward, okay? I'm not sure I agree that that is a hardship under the zoning ordinance because it is all under the variance standard. It's always going to be less costly if you can divide it between 5, 6, 7. There's nothing specific about this piece of property that means that the costs that exorbitant or that extraordinary or anything like that. He has not said any information about that there's these astronomical costs.
Cheryl, can you mute your mic, please?
Does anybody else want to talk about this?
That's the dog.
so
Whose dog? Is that your dog, Cheryl?
that's mine. Hold on, let me put her in the crate. Caleb, get in your crate. Get in your crate.
She's muted.
You're muted. Now you're muted.
Thank you.
Okay, Cheryl, now you can talk.
Okay, I was just thinking, the financial hardship and the hardship of maintaining the road, I live like that. I live a quarter mile in the woods and it's just something that, the owner of the land and the home has to assume some responsibility for it. And if you can't afford to live out there, you don't live out there. I can't see changing an ordinance like that. We get allowed 2 back lots and that should be plenty.
Does anybody else want to comment on this?
We allowed one backlot.
Who was that?
Under the ordinance, you can have two.
Oh, okay.
You can have two, but you can't have three.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion?
So let me comment. I think the more we develop this property, the quicker it's going to turn into a town center. That's my
That's
feeling.
the beginning.
I know people are against the residential, but all of these residential properties will turn into businesses down the road. So I'm in agreement for 3 lots here.
Okay, that's a planning discussion.
Variance.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion?
I just did.
What'd you move? I'm sorry.
I'm at the variance for the 3 lots.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, roll call vote. George,
No,
Cheryl,
nay.
Ray,
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I vote no. So the first one's been granted for the residential, and the second has been denied, so it's 2 lots, not 3. Okay. Do we want to move on to the next case?
Thank you, Karen.
Yep. Bye, Dave. First one is this is not a continued case. The next one is 101-33-GR-21-ZBA equitable waiver, owners Robert and Tamara Simino. Are the applicants present?
yes.
And you're going to be presenting, or is Kevin going to be presenting?
Kevin.
Okay.
I will be.
Kevin, you're going to present?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Thank you. Yep. Kevin McEnany, I'm a land surveyor in Dover, and I'm representing the applicants here this evening, the Seminoles. Madam Chair, I just might ask a point of clarification. So once the public comment is ended, is it not possible for me, the representative of the applicant, to address the board anymore unless it's at the wish of the chair or the consensus?
It's at the wish, it's basically the wish of the chair. I will reopen the meeting if there's something that the board feels that needs to be considered. We do it frequently. But what we do is we don't want people intervening while we're discussing it.
Understandable. I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that before we started. So this evening, we're here tonight to request an equitable waiver to allow a concrete slab and a mobile home unit to be located 20.6 feet from the front yard, front line, if you will, of Longshore Drive, where 40 feet is required. This particular property is part of the Longshore development back in the 60s. There's a number of smaller lots, I should say, that were developed. This particular overall property is a combination of 4 of those smaller lots. So the total acreage is about 1.8 acres. And if you've looked at the plans that we submitted, you can see that the existing mobile home is located on the right-hand side at 20.6 feet and on the left-hand side at 30.5 feet. And behind the mobile home, you can see that there's pretty significant slope issues with the lot. So when there are multiple errors, I would say, were happening at the same time while this application or the building application was put forward. So during the building application, Robert Simino built it out and provided a hand sketch of where the unit was to be. And he estimated that it was going to be approximately 75 feet from the road. Well, in fact, when they started looking at the construction cost of that and the practicality of trying to flatten out that slope and make it a level area for the mobile home to be located, it became problematic. So he decided it would be more advantageous to move it closer to the road where it was more level and easier to work. Unfortunately, he moved it too close to the road so that now we're at the 20.5 feet versus the 40 feet that was required. There was a field inspection done by the building department that was ostensibly for looking at the rebar and okaying the rebar before the concrete was being poured. So there was a statement issued and left at the site that just said okay, and it had a date and the building inspector's signature. So the owners, as well as the concrete contractor, took that to mean they were fine going ahead, and the building inspector was not necessarily okaying the location of the foundation, but I think it was more the rebar portion of it. So again, there was a misunderstanding there. So that brings us to where we are tonight, asking for this equitable waiver. And I also will mention as well that there's an approved septic system that went through the New Hampshire DES that was approved and installed. And on that septic design plan, which I believe you have a copy in front of you, there was shown a proposed 3-bedroom, more of a rectangle than the actual mobile home actual shape, which was, if you look at that, and it shows the mobile home as it exists today overlaying on that property, the original location of the house was actually closer than what the mobile home is now. So even though it doesn't justify the 40, the not adhering to the 40-foot setback, for some reason the mobile home, the septic designer took it upon himself to show that in that location. So anyways, fast forward, and now we have the situation where we're non-conforming on the front setback. It's 20.6 feet versus 40 feet. And in the application that I submitted, we went through some of the reasoning for requesting the equitable waiver. First of all, we were brought onto this project to do a foundation certification, which the Seminoles were not aware of until sort of late in the process. So when we brought the survey crew out there, we were the one who discovered just a few weeks ago that in fact it was not meeting the setback requirements. So we're asking for the equitable waiver because we think that we feel that there was an error in the interpretation or the application of the dimensional requirements. It was not done, by bad faith. It was a mistake made. So we feel that that granting this equitable waiver would be well sent. Now, the other thing is it has to do with whether or not it constitutes a nuisance or diminished value in the neighborhood. And we don't believe that this is granting this equitable waiver will diminish the values in the neighborhood. As a matter of fact, a number of the units in that neighborhood are set back at varying degrees. Some are set really far back from the road, some are relatively close to the road. So there's a great difference in degree of where the setbacks are. I think some actually are closer than 40 feet in some cases. Yeah, so it's similar to the properties of the surrounding area. One of the other criteria is whether or not the correction of the violation would far outweigh any public benefit to be gained from the compliance with the regulation. And the existing layout of the subject property does not pose any negative effect on the surrounding property values, in my opinion. The subject property in its existing configuration has a similar feel to the nearby properties of their varying shapes and sizes and distances from the front property line. And certainly forcing the Seminoles to correct the setback situation would cause tremendous cost to them in trying to move that and reestablish it. So with that, I think that that's our case, and we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, I'm sure you explained it, I just missed it. This construction, this is a brand new site, or it's been put on an existing site? No,
it's a brand new concrete slab with an older mobile home on it.
Okay. And when did this new slab get put in?
It was put in November of 2020.
And it's in the same location where the mobile home unit was before?
No, there was no mobile home unit on, there was no unit at all on this lot before. What my point was is the location where the septic designer showed a proposed house, this is in the relatively same location.
Okay. Any questions from anybody else? George? Are you on mute? You're muted.
I bet you that was a welcome from some people, but anyway. What I have here is that, do we have a copy of the building permit? Does Marcia have it in the record? And if so, what's the distance on the building permit? That's my first question on there. And
Oh, there's the proposed house.
at any time, sir, did your client have contact with the building official as to where they're putting it, or any regards to how it would be inconvenient, or was there any discussion with your client and the building official about moving that unit? Now, before you answer, I don't want you to turn around and say, well, that's where the post was. I want to know that he spoke to them about it, so that way there they can assume when he approved the rebarb that he had already spoken to them earlier about moving the pad. So that's why I'm asking those questions that way and holding you up so that you know I'm not trying to do a trick.
No, I understand. Let me answer the first question that you had. So on the building permit application, the listed setback was 75 feet
From the road.
from the road.
Okay.
And I'm going to ask either Tammy or Robert to answer the last question, because I don't have any knowledge of what their communication was.
No, I hadn't spoken to anybody about it.
You froze up. No, I didn't hear that last. You said
I
you had
said,
spoken.
no, I didn't speak to John or tell him that it was being moved. We thought it was gonna go down closer, a lot closer to the river, but it ended up, it couldn't. So, and the cost would have been substantial.
But that, no, I'm asking if you just had conversation with him, because we're looking at 70 feet.
No,
But we're looking at 70 feet, and so I can't figure out how a piece of rebarb could change the position by 50 feet. That's the reason why I'm asking it, sir.
I guess, what do you mean, piece of,
Oh, when they
Well-
okayed, when they okayed
oh,
it.
when he okayed it, you mean?
Mhm.
When he okayed the rebarb and it was mistaken that that's where you're gonna move the house, that's why I
Oh,
asked,
no,
did you talk to John about moving the pad? And if so, it meant the pad was moved 70 feet.
no, the pad,
Maybe I'm missing something. If you want to try to explain it to me.
yeah, when they came out and okayed it, the form was already set. They hadn't poured yet. I mean, he didn't come out and okay the pad and then we moved the pad.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
So the building official okayed the pad where it sits 70 feet different from what the building permit was.
Yes, when he came out, LaPierre's already formed it, did the rebarb, and then they came out and inspected, and on the paper it was put okay. So I was assuming that it was okay to be put at that, put there, and he was okay in, I believe, the rebar and stuff,
And the plastic.
and the plastic, you know, the vapor barrier.
So
But
that's why
we didn't move it
I was
after.
asking a question. That's why I was asking a question. Did you speak to John about moving the platform to 70 feet? And if he did, that's the reason for it. I mean, it's just the question is, you know, or did you go and see John and change the drawing, or did you submit a drawing change to John?
No,
We amended.
the
Did you send an, are you saying you sent an amended drawing to John, ma'am?
Yeah, we did an amendment because the well they were gonna put way in the woods and we would have had to cut more trees. So we amended the well. And what was with the septic? Something
Yeah, the septic had to be so far back from the river
river, there was a
that it
setback.
brought the septic way up the hill. That's when
where
the
house was.
the construction guy that did all the fill and stuff brought it up there. But we didn't move the pad after the
No.
guy, because I wasn't here when it was okay. They left the paper for me, so I don't know which one, but we didn't move the pad after it was okay.
So you're saying John okayed the pad to be moved?
I don't
70
know.
feet.
I wasn't here when, I don't know which, if it was John or another person.
Madam Chair, maybe I'm not explaining it correctly. I'm not getting a cohesive answer with it. Could you help, please?
I'm confused too, totally. I don't understand about the rebar, but I have a different question. Maybe this is this, I can't read what the plan says because the print is so small. How far is it from the river?
The home,
He knows, Kevin knows. Kevin, did you measure it from the river to the house?
It's 98 plus feet, Madam Chair, on the drawing.
90? Okay, is that what it is? It's over 75?
Yes, it is over 75 to the deck, the 36x4 deck.
Okay,
I might point out, though, if you look on the plan, there are two dimensions. The one to the 98 to the river is to the actual edge of the river as we located it in the field on the date that we did the survey, which was several weeks ago. There's another dimension of 68 feet to what was the location of the silt fence, erosion control silt fence, which is at the top of the bank.
Yep, I see it.
At some points during high water lines, the water comes to that point.
okay.
So at some points it could be up to 68 feet closer.
I guess my question is this the location which places the house the furthest from the river?
Yes, it had to be so
I'm
many
asking-
feet back, and the septic had to be, it's at the what? It's the limit that it had to be.
Kevin, is there any place else it could have been located on there to be the furthest from the river? Could have gone over on the other side? Is that marsh? I don't know what this,
Yeah, where the house is located now is definitely the furthest from the river. If it moved down slope, it would be, another 30 feet closer to, or 25 feet at least.
like within 30 feet of the top of the bank.
Right.
Okay.
The one thing I might be able to add for clarification, so maybe I'm misrepresenting what the significance of the rebar was. So the rebar that I'm talking about for the inspector to look at was the rebar, the reinforcing rod that would be within the footing or the foundation
Oh, the
forms
pad.
of the
Yeah.
pad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And when he inspected that form was in place and all the rebar was in place, but they had not poured the concrete because they wanted the inspection first. So the location of that did not change between when the inspector looked at the rebar and okayed the rebar and the forms versus where it is today.
Yeah, but
So
that's not his job either, right? We're all in agreement?
No, I
Measuring from
I
side-
understand that.
That's what I'm saying. It's not his,
No, we're not blaming him.
Okay,
No, we just had to be so many feet away for the setback for the river. So,
yeah, but I don't see where the erosion fence comes in because as we all know, the mark that brings it down to 90-something feet, that's within legal limits. So that's just the fence. I don't see where it plays a part in this, except,
just the top, it's the top of the bank by the river. The rest goes right straight down to the water, but it's like what? 3 or 4 feet
yeah.
downhill into the river, but the water comes up to there.
I don't see a letter from the building inspector. Marcia, was the building inspector brought in on this?
he's had multiple conversations on this particular, well, he got it, he discovered it when they supplied the foundation certification. But my understanding is he had informed the applicant a few times that he was going to need a foundation certification. I think part of the confusion might also be is with the setback from the river, it can be based on this lot of record, it could have been as much as possible, but I think when they were trying to actually comply with the 75 feet instead, because they could have, I believe, moved it closer and still been in compliance. I think it's a very difficult lot. It's very difficult
Well,
topography.
That's
And I
not,
think that was
that's not
part
the
of,
question I asked, though. I can see the photography on the T-tography on the, excuse my pronunciation, on there, but I'm just looking at it right now, and I just, there's a lot of confusion here, because as you and I both know, Marcia, that on the, when you apply for a building permit, it lists all the steps that you have to go through, and so the foundation certification is on the building permit. So, I mean, there shouldn't be any question as to why that wasn't done. So, all right, I've made up, Madam Chair. Thank you. I'm going to just let somebody else.
Is Cheryl there? Cheryl, is still there? Have we lost Cheryl?
I'm right here.
Okay, do you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Dave, do you have any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So this is a private road, correct?
Yeah.
And how wide is the right of way on this private road?
The right of way is variable width on this. In some cases, it's probably 50 feet wide. In other cases, it might be 80 feet wide.
Well, I guess my question is with regard to this particular area of this property. I'm looking at your survey sheet here, and I'm trying to understand, is that a narrow section of the road right there where that setback is?
That is a narrow section of the road. I would say you probably, I don't have a scale in front of me, but I'm going to estimate that that is probably closer to the 50 to 55 feet in width.
It's the town requirement for a road width. Would you probably know that?
It should be 50 feet.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have.
Ray, any questions?
No, I don't. Comments, but no questions.
Okay, is there anybody else here to speak in favor?
Actually, I have one more, sorry.
Go ahead.
Have we heard anything from any of the abutters?
Nope.
Okay.
Anybody here to speak in opposition? Hearing none, we'll close the public testimony portion of the meeting and the board can discuss it.
So I'm looking at this design myself, and I'm saying that's probably the best place you could put any kind of property on this and protect the, the water.
Right.
I
Yeah,
agree, and my biggest concern is the water.
Right, and if we're off a foot or two here in either way, I think the design is ideal, I think, for us to protect the wetlands, so.
Yeah. I agree. I think in
My
most.
question, Karen, is they've requested an equitable waiver?
Yeah, that was.
That's a little different. I mean, this almost looks like a zoning because this not existed for a long time.
Yeah,
So I'm wondering if it should be a zoning versus an equitable waiver.
Well, a variance, you mean. So.
Variance versus an equitable waiver, correct, yes.
Okay, here's what the equitable waiver standard is, that the violation was not noticed or discovered by any owner, former owner, owner's agent or representative or municipal officer until after a structure in violation had been substantially completed. Okay?
So it is.
Agree with that. That's
just
correct.
one part. Or,
So that's why I asked for the letter from John, if John had submitted a letter on this before coming before us, because I know he must have known it was coming here tonight. Is that right, Marcia?
yes, what kind of letter
I mean,
did you
I
need?
would have thought that we would have had a note from John saying that how he recollects talking about this instead of, right now, it's all one-sided, and I feel compelled to be able to ask John some questions on this as to what's going on. I'm not saying I distrust anybody, but we only have one side of it now, Madam Chair, so that's
Well, I
another.
understand, but what you're saying is, did John notice that it was too close to the road and say something to them? So,
Or did John authorize the movement of it after the building permit was put there 70 feet further down the road? I mean, down the hill.
right.
I mean, there's a
Get
lot,
him?
there's
wait,
a
wait,
lot of fill
don't-
that has to go
I
in
don't
there.
know, and we don't have it before us, so let me just keep going through the standards, okay? And,
Yes,
or
yes,
B,
yes,
that the
yes.
violation was not an outcome of ignorance of the law or ordinance, failure to inquire, obfuscation, misrepresentation, or bad faith on the part of any owner, owner's agent, or representative, but was instead caused by either a good faith error in measurement or calculation made by an owner or owner's agent, or by an error in ordinance interpretation or applicability made by a municipal official in the process of issuing a permit over which that official had authority. So it's not the last part. So it's whether or not it is that it was, but was instead caused by either a good faith error in measurement or calculation made by an owner or owner's agent.
I would agree.
That's why I would like to ask John. Did John tell him that they couldn't move and they need to put the fill? I mean, we're talking a lot of money here, no matter how you look at whether they had to fill it in to make it work or they had to turn around and we vote not to approve it and they have to tear it up and put another one down. Either way, we have a lot of money involved in there, and I would just like to have opportunity to ask John, did you tell them that they had to fill it in? Did you tell them that they could move it after you've already issued the building permit?
I kind of agree with
Did
George.
not.
I think we need to
Let
get
me-
John's input in
Let me
this.
keep going so we can talk about it. The standard.
Certainly.
Okay, C, that the physical or domestic violation does not constitute a public or private nuisance, nor diminish the value of other property in the area, nor interfere with or adversely affect any present or permissible future uses of any such property. That's true, okay? It's not a public or private nuisance, it doesn't diminish the value of other property in the area, and it doesn't interfere with or adversely affect any present or permissible future uses. And finally, that due to the degree of past construction or investment made in ignorance of the facts constituting the violation, the cost of correction so far outweighs any public benefit to be gained that it would be inequitable to require the violation to be corrected. That's true.
Yes, true. Yes.
Cost
That
outweighs
is true.
And so let me tell you what my thought, that's the 4 standards. When I look at this, I say to myself, if they came to us and asked for a variance, what's the first thing that we ask for? How far are you away from the water, right? How many times have we given variances for 20 or 26 feet? I mean, ideally, we would have had it moved 10 feet closer, probably. We would have probably
10
had
feet.
30, okay?
Mhm.
I can't remember the last time we had a request for an equitable waiver. I think it's been about 10 years, okay?
Actually, we had one when you weren't here in December or November.
Yeah.
So, all right, but other than that, we haven't had them, okay? There was
The
a
other one was on 126 years ago. We
Yeah.
had to move the house.
There was a flurry of them at one point, and then all of a sudden they dropped off. But if they came to us, that's the site where I think the house would go. I mean, if it went down on the other side of the property, it's closer to the river. You know,
And I'd be concerned about flood stage then too, as well as just being closer to the water.
well, then they have to put a driveway down to the other part too, or something like that to get there. So,
Right.
right.
That's not supposed to be, that's money. That's not supposed to be considered because it's not where we're putting the house. It's the other money it's costing. I don't think.
You're wrong. Hardship, it can be
Right.
money. They've amended the statute. So, that's my thought. I don't,
Can I make a motion, we grant the equitable waiver?
you can make, is there a second?
I'll second.
that.
I'm gonna do a roll call vote. Cheryl,
Aye.
Dave,
Aye.
George,
Can I vote last? No, I'll go aye. I don't want to, but I'll vote aye.
Ray,
Aye.
and I vote yes. So it's granted.
Do you have a hammer there?
Thank you very much.
Gavel, wang.
I make a motion that we conclude further discussion of this. Oh, I'm sorry, we're not at the deliberative session.
We just voted. Okay.
Over. This is over, right?
All right. Yeah, we're on our last case.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I wish you two all the best in the world when you have your new place, and I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy when you see the wildlife down there. Best
Oh,
to you.
we're looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right, the last case of the night is 106-14-GR-21, ZBA variance owners Andrew Peck and Yelena Frederick. Are the applicants present? What happened to Michael House? Is he gone?
He left the room.
Marcia, is he the applicant?
God, it's been so long. Peck and Yurlin from Arizona. Oh, he should be, is he on virtually? Do we have anyone on virtually?
I don't know. Who's KM?
That's Mr. McEnany, I believe.
Kevin's still there. That's Dave. There's a guest.
My video on?
He should be
I've been on all night.
virtually.
So where is he?
I don't know.
Oh, that must be Marcia's fiddling again on the dials. Oops, I didn't say that.
Let's see.
Mr. House, is that?
Oh, you know what? This is the one. Yes, he lives out of state.
There's the Michael House online. Is that for this?
Andrew, unless it's his brother representing him. Do we have?
Is anybody here for the Peck and Frederick case? Request for a variance?
This has been a challenge, this particular application. It hasn't gotten any easier. Michael Hout, is he not?
He said
I'm
no.
not here. I am not one of the applicants. I just happen to go and be a resident.
Oh, for that, are you an abutter or a resident of Air Lake area?
I am not.
Well,
All right, so we are an hour and 15 minutes into it.
Should
And
have
we
been on
don't,
by now.
we don't know
yeah,
where the applicant is. So why don't we continue it to the next month? Is there a motion?
Me.
Continue it next month.
I
Did you
second
make
it.
the motion, Ray? Second? Okay, George,
All right, yes.
Cheryl,
Yep, yeah,
Ray,
All right.
and I vote yes. So it's continued. All right,
Okay.
Motion to approve the minutes.
is there a second?
Second.
George, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Cheryl,
yes.
Ray,
Yes.
and I vote yes. I don't think we have any other business, right?
I think that was
Adjourn.
enough.
Motion to adjourn.
To adjourn, a second?
Second,
George,
Aye.
Cheryl,
aye.
Dave,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
and I vote yes. Adjourned.
Good night.
Everybody have a good 30 days.
Have a good night.
It was very pleasant.
Oh, my
Even George was pleasant.
Well, that's not, at least it wasn't politics. That's all I care about. Discussion.
We can disagree.
God, I say
We
that.
can disagree. We were all pleasant about it.
Yeah.
I
That's
think
right.
that was the
I
type
wish
of-
I
That's
had
how it
one in
should
the
be.
library.
That's how-
Well, I took a
I mean,
licking on there. I was the ugly redheaded stepchild last week. Oh, it's true.
George, we should be able to disagree.
That's right.
Be
That's why
agreeable,
there's a group of us and not one of us.
That's right. Oh,
right? Okay.
I thought it was
night.
pretty equitable myself. Good night, guys.
good night,
Good night,
everybody.
everybody.
Be safe. Thank you.
Bye.